Hello, this is going to be a slightly different video for me. Here I'm going to be looking at a particular module called Content Grid, which is part of a pack called PowerPack, which is a premium plugin for Beaver Builder and comes from these guys called Beaver Addons, and the URL will be below. I hope you managed to follow that. The other thing that's different about this video is I've created a live demo site. So with this URL, you'll be able to come along here with the video and work with it yourself. So all you need to do is to put in a simple captcha, press try demo, and what this will do after a few moments will create a new version of this site where you'll be logged in and you'll have backend access, and you can do what you like. You can fully test out PowerPack for yourself and go work along with the examples I've put in. Now at the moment there's only really this one that's working properly because I've just started this, but this site will build up over time. Now I mentioned really early on in one of my videos that I was going to do something very similar with just Beaver Builder plugin and the theme, and what I did is I paused for a little while because things were happening so much. There were a lot of amazing plugins coming out that a lot of us in the community are starting to use, and I thought I'm going to need some different demos, and that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm building up a collection of these demos to go with videos, and to be honest, I actually needed to do this for myself anyway. I work with a colleague who works mostly with the clients and does most of the adding of content to sites, and as we're about to add these plugins to client installs, she needed a way to practice and some tutorials about the new stuff that we're adding. So really what I'm showing here, showcasing, is stuff that I'm actually going to be using myself, stuff that I've tested a lot because I'm a very cautious person. I like to make sure that I can kind of, where possible, test something to destruction to make sure I'm not going to have problems later. So I've also been talking to the developers of any of these plugins if I spot any issues. In fact, I didn't on this one at all. So that's it. So and of course the plugin developers know themselves, PowerPack guys. Puneet knows that I'm doing this. So the one we're talking about is the one called Content Grid, and although there's examples over on their site under demos, I've knocked up some fairly ugly ones here to just talk you through what's available on it. This is a simple video here. You'll be able to probably work out most of it for yourself, but if you're like me, you might like watching somebody else just talk you through the options that are available. So I'm just going to pause the video for a moment and get logged in myself so I can show you the back end. So I've logged in as you would, and my box is gone. I've got a log out link, and I've also got a new account as an administrator. There's also this reset button over here, which will just recreate another install for you if you want to start from scratch. Let's just go over to the actual link, Content Grid, and I've also opened it up over here so I can look at the examples while we look in the module itself. Now I didn't really explain this. I think the best way of probably trying to understand the Content Grid is it's very similar in some ways to the Beaver Builder's own post module, except this one has been on some very serious steroids and gives you a ton of styling options and some really cool effects like this isotope effect that can be used on categories or tags. It works with pages as well, and it's got a carousel option over here and a ton of other stuff. As I say, this is one with page. If you don't have a page in it, also it puts you a dummy image in, but if you assign a featured image to go with it, it's going to show that. And there's just a ton of styling options that go with it as I'm trying to demonstrate on here. But let's go in and log in. Well, we're logged in already. Let's go over to into Page Builder so we can see the module for itself. And as you can see, PowerPack modules are all down here. There's about 30 plus of these modules, and they're also bringing on some templates soon, so it's going to be really quite good value. Let's go into the module here, and we'll use this one as an example. Now there's an awful lot to cover here, so I'll just go through it as quickly as I possibly can. So the first thing is to choose whether we're going to grid or carousel, so we can swap that over where it will change this to carousel, and we've got options here for that, and different styling options will appear. Just something to say about this, one small gripe, but it's not the fault of the PowerPack guys. I spoke to Puneet about it, is that some of the effects that you put in there, some of the changes you make are not Ajax. You won't always see the preview of it live, and that's just because of the restrictions that are in Beaver Builder at the moment. They're adding on these new things, but it's not in Beaver Builder to be able to add it. So it's not for want of wanting it to be a better user experience, it's just not practical to do it. But it doesn't get in the way most of the time, but just be aware that sometimes you're expecting to see it happen as a live preview and it doesn't. But most of the time it's not going to really bother you too much. So the first thing, layout. So we've got grid, a carousel. We've got a set of styles here, which I'll show you later. We'll just leave it on the default. We got equal height, so we can set the grids to be looking grid-like and not all uneven. We can decide how many posts we want on a page, and I've set this to 8 while there's actually more. So we've got pagination showing here to go to another page. We can set the pagination to numbers or scrolls. So it's got that lazy load effect where as you scroll, it'll show you more, and it's good on page load. And while I'm talking about page load, I'll just let you know that I did do a quick test on this, and my server's in London, and I chose the nearest on Pingdom here, which is Stockholm, Sweden. And look at that, it's great loading time on this. Quite a few number of requests, but when you think about how many I've loaded onto this page here, it's an awful lot for it to do, and really good time. I did test this twice and it didn't get quite as high as this one, but it was certainly, everything was under 2 seconds, which was a good thing. So right back to where we were. So we talked about the pagination style. We can set the number of columns that we have. In most cases that I've done 4, but in a couple of cases, I think this round one I've done 3, and the bottom one I've done 3. So you can set those. You can set the column spacing here in percentages, so the space between each of them. This one's tighter on this one over here, I think, than this one over here. So I've adjusted this one to, I think, maybe 1% there. I think this is one of the things which doesn't show Ajax wise. No, it doesn't. So that's one of the things where you'll need to save to see the effect. Okay, over at the content side here, we can choose whether we're using pages or posts, or if we're using a custom post type that we created, that's going to become available. We can order by ID, date modified, title, author, comment count if we want popularity, menu order, or random. So that's pretty much everything covered there. We can offset the posts as well, so if we don't want the first one to show. So in those kind of examples where maybe you've got one post showing at the top there, which is your main one, and you've got 3 under in a separate module, if you offset by 1, it doesn't duplicate the one above that, if that makes sense. And we can start filtering here as well. If we go back up here, I can just see this work live, I think. So let me just take one of the pages, and everyone's called WP Rocket there, so I'm going to type the right thing. There we are. So it finds the ones you want, and you can keep adding those tags. So you can just show the ones that you select, and yeah, it's working in lifetime over there. And the same will happen with categories if we want to sort by certain categories to show tags, and also by author. We can decide whether we're showing the content, which I've done on this one, or an excerpt. And I've set the content to show 10 words. I've said yes to a read more link, and I've decided to go for a button, which I can style later. If I go for box over here, it just makes sure that the whole box is clickable. I'll move that back. We can change what we says on the read more link there. We're able to enable this post filtering. So this is that isotope effect that we've got going on over here. Once we say yes to that, then we can decide whether we want to display tags or categories. So that's what that does. Featured images, yes or no. We've got yes on there because we've got it. And also very key on these things is that it makes available all the sizes you've got in your WordPress installed. These are often set by your theme, so they'll be different depending on how you set it in WordPress as well, what's available. But quite important to select the smallest image that's going to be needed for the site to keep the page load down. And we decide whether we can turn on the author to show that, whether we can also decide whether we're going to show the categories, and we can show categories and tags. Let's just turn categories on, and then I can go back and show you what that style was about. So as you can see, it's turned on categories there, but if we go back to layouts over here, we can select these styles. This is where we can start to mess around with this. So if I select a different style, it's gonna put that in a, and that wasn't much of a change there, but let's pick another one here. You'll have to, there we are. So it places it there. You'll see on my example over here, I've used it, and I've selected this here to show a tag. Even though this is filtering by tags, I'm getting it to show, but if we tagged it up as something else, we could show it. So that's how I've done that. And I was able to style this as well. So that's that. Where was we? We need to go back over to our contents. We were just finishing up on there. Let me go and just turn those categories off. That's probably the easiest thing. Now we go over to our styling, and go over to the top there. So we've got basic layout ones where we can set all of our padding as we like. We can set the content. Now this is by messing around with these, I was able to create this rounded effect by sorting out the padding, coupled with being able to change the round corners here. I think I set it at 200 pixels, and I think I was able to create this round effect just by messing with these ones and this, and you'll be able to see this when you see for yourself. So we can see the color of our box as well. I've set this and a hover effect for it. The hover effect is quite nice. It automatically puts, as you can see, it's not, you know, jittery. It's got a bit of CSS animation, so it glides in quite nicely. We can also put border styles. I've got a border around here that's white, 2 pixels, and I can have that dash dotted or whatever, rounding off the corners for the boxes themselves. We can enable shadows on this, and then we can set all these box shadow effects. And if I flip back again, you can see I've used them a little bit here. I don't know how well this shows on the video, but it's a very subtle one and just lifts off these circles. And again, I like subtle. I've used it again here just to bring these boxes out a little bit. So there's a bit of box shadow effect there. I don't like to go over the top with that. So that's that. Okay, we can have title overlay colors as well, because I've just turned that on, so that's an option come on with my styling, I believe. I don't know if this is Ajax. Yes, it is. There we are. You can see that's working, and we can set the opacity for that. So as you see, sometimes when you select some of these styles, you're going to get more options become available, so you've got more on the styles. But here we are, read more buttons, background colors, what expect text, border styles, rounded corners on the buttons on that as well, and padding and margins on that. Something I just remembered, I don't know if I actually just showed you that, you know, when you come to columns as well, for our column settings here, it's important to know that these are responsive, so you can set this. Often I end up with a situation where, say, yeah, this is on 3. Oh, I've done this already. I've set this one. So it doesn't do it. If I'd have done this under normal, I've set this to 3 and 3 using this instead of having it go to 2, because then if you use the defaults, you end up with one box under the other when we're at a iPad type size. So this is how we can adjust this and make that sort of grid experience better. Obviously when it goes to the next one, it doesn't matter, let it go to the default of 1. Oh, hello, maybe I didn't set that. But you can play around with this in your own time. Oh dear, dear. Anyway, yes, so that gets around some of these issues here, and you'll need to play around with the grids. I'm not sure what I did set, actually, to be honest. But that's the idea with this. You can set this to, if you wanted to keep these as 4, you could keep 4 there, and they would just squash up proportionately without dropping down to 2 and falling underneath. But 4, 2, 1 is a fairly sensible arrangement. I think you'll agree. Okay, right. I went off thing there. We've gone down, read more, and these styling of the buttons here with all the padding and margin again available for that. And you can see I played around this. No transparent option here, but you don't need it to create the effect on this one. I've done it by making the background color the same as the box and then using a border effect around it to just make sure it looks like a transparent button. Okay, so pagination, again, we're able to set this with all of the options, bordering style, round corners again. As you can see, I went to town a bit on this one and made sure these are round by adding plenty of padding on them. So that made them all nice and round. And yep, that's it. And if we look at typography, we've got the same effects here. We can decide what our tag's going to be for our title, and we can set the font size. So we can still have a header one that was small by setting it. We can set all of our own custom layouts for the typography on this. So we can line heights on this. We can set text transform to, as I have uppercase on here, but lowercase as well. And all the same goes with the metadata here. We can all style that. Do all the typography again for that. As you can see, this is live changing, and the typography on the read more button. And I think that probably covers it. If I just quickly go over to show you the carousel one, you will see there are some other options on this which become available. So you can decide whether you're going to show dots or whether you're going to have arrows on the side, which you can then go ahead and style if you want those arrows and move them slightly to different positions on that. So you've got a whole new bunch of options which I haven't showed you in that first one that come up for styling those. And that's kind of how this module grid works. I'm really pleased with it. I mean, I have gone through PowerPack. I found a few little flaws on some of the other modules that I use, but this one's a really extensive module, and I actually haven't come up against any issues at all with it. As I say, it's just about some things not live previewing. But I mean, this is certainly one that we're going to use a lot. I use grids a lot. We display products a lot and use this as a way of doing that and going through to those product pages. And this is a wonderful plugin for that. I'm definitely going to be using this module. So, okay, that's enough of me. I think I doubt you got to the end of this video before you started just working it out for yourself. But thanks for putting up with me, and I hope this was useful. I'll talk to you again in another video. Bye-bye.